Welcome back to the Sad Boy Cinema Club podcast. My name is Austin. His name is AJ. Join us as we try to find purpose and hope in America's true pastime, watching some good old-fashioned movies. You see the title, you see the thumbnail. We're talking about Double Team today, a film directed by Stewie Hark, written by Don Jacoby and Paul Moniz, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dennis Rodman, Mickey Rourke, and Ivan Ooze himself, Paul Freeman. And again, the guy behind the camera, the cinematographer, is Peter Powell. This was AJ's movie, and we discussed at the end of last pod how begrudging I was about the selection because of our leading man here, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Maybe you can give me a little more insight now that we both watched the film and we're getting ready to discuss this film in length, why you did this to me and why you will probably do it again.
Again, I think if you are, whether you're just tuning in or hopefully you've been with us for a while, I love to be almost the exact opposite to Austin. I like to cause him frustration and torment. So it's kind of fun, but also the reason I picked this movie wasn't even for Jean Claude. It was for my man Dennis Rodman. I love him, and I saw he was on the cover, and that was enough for me.
How many Dennis Rodman movies have you seen now?
Two. I've seen two.
So this and what else?
Simon Says.
So should he have been in Oscar contention, or what are we thinking there?
He's definitely probably one of the better basketball actors. So I don't know. I don't think that's an Oscar category, but he's definitely a better. He's not the worst basketball player that has pivoted to acting.
Yeah, I don't know who that dishonor would go to, but I would agree, just based off of this one movie that I've seen from him, and of course his time in the NWO. It's definitely not the worst acting I've ever seen from a basketball player. But without further ado, why don't you just kick us off here and tell us how this movie gets started?
I hope you're ready for a high octane, just adventure, and that's really the best that I can describe this. This is very much a Hong Kong style movie, action movie, that was just given a Hollywood budget. So if you're familiar with Hong Kong cinema, especially action films, like you notice it almost immediately in this film. But it starts out with an over-the-top rescue mission where Quinn, which is Jean-Claude Van Damme, or I'll later call him just Jack, must stop weapons-grade plutonium from being sold to the Iraqis. Man, that's a trope that we have seen once. We've seen it 1,000 times. They go back to the well all the time. It's always, we got to stop the Iraqis from getting some sort of weapon. But the thing is, too, like with that, they never really go back to that situation. Like, we assume that he stopped them, but there's this crazy chase. He's stolen the military weapon that has the weapons grade plutonium, and you see him do that Fast and the Furious final moment where there's a train coming, and he just takes it and hops the ramp over the train, and then it just kind of pivots away from that whole thing. But he had 14 hours to stop it, or his resignation was going to be final from the CIA, which is weird. I've done a resignation. I don't think there was ever a timeline other than the 2 weeks you set up yourself. So the 14 hours was a little weird. The main bad guy in this movie is Stavros, played by a fucking ripped Mickey Rourke. Like, this is peak Mickey Rourke. But he plays Stavros, and the first interaction we get with Stavros is he gets in the back of a car of a CIA agent who previously had tried to recruit Jack to go chase Stavros. Stavros kills the CIA agent by putting a bomb in the back of his car. Did you catch the timer? Like, when Stavros was getting out of the car, he said, "Hey, by the way, I left you a gift in the back." And it's at like 56 seconds. And then the guy panics and locks the door with his elbow. And then it just blows up. So I don't know. That was the fastest 56 seconds. There's some little inconsistencies in this film that kind of drive me crazy, and this is one of them.
It feels like, and I'll bring this up later in my overall thoughts, it feels as if we were dropped off in the middle of an action movie and then started watching it from the midpoint to finish, and there's still another hour and a half left to go. I don't like it. I will say that there have been other films that have done it successfully. I don't think this one did it though. I need a slow burn on this stuff. I don't need pyro and explosions and all this other stuff to hit me right in the face as soon as I sit down with my popcorn. I need you to tell the story of why I should even care first, and then get me interested in all of the explosions.
Austin, the reason was we had to stop the Iraqis from getting weapon grade plutonium. I don't know how much more you can need from a storyline. Michael Bay must have just been a huge fan of these films though, because it's just pyrotechnics, explosions, car crashes, gunfire. Like it's if you love Michael Bay films, you will definitely love Double Team. And then after Stavros kills the CIA, I don't even think we ever get the CIA agent's name because he's not in the movie that long. But Jack then heads to an S&M club in Antwerp looking for Yas. And Antwerp kind of makes me think of the Pleasure Island from Pinocchio. You've seen Pinocchio, I'm sure?
I
No?
mean, yeah, but I mean, it's been 28 years at
Wow.
least.
Wow.
Like,
We can just delete this, I guess. So
my whole entire plot hinges on the fact that you know what I'm talking about.
you have to know what Pleasure Island is. So Pleasure Island is just like the name. Any desire you have, you can find it, and that's what Antwerp is showing. Like we get there, and Jack is looking at it's a cool concept, but very weirdly done. The like peekaboo dancer from the window that was in S&M wear plus scuba gear. I could see, sure that could be sexy, I guess, but like that's just kind of weird. I guess the people that get turned on that can't go to public aquariums because when they're cleaning the tank, like, oh god, this does something to me.
I have a pretty public stance of we don't kink shame. So, whatever rocks your boat, man. If you're into that, cool. Not my forte, but different strokes.
That's the thing. I definitely can see where it would be cool, but I think there are just cooler things like, and I get like you don't want to have it set up like a red light district where there's just women of the night naked and trying to sell their wares, but so maybe that's why they did it this way. But Jack makes it into this club and he sticks out like a sore thumb. He's very straight laced CIA agent, and Yaz is not, obviously, because he's played by the Worm, Dennis Rodman, and he's in there. He first time he meets Yaz, Yaz is getting I think he's getting a tattoo around his belly button, but the tattoo on his belly button is already there because he has it in real life. So it just is kind of weird. Like you would think they would have done like maybe a tattoo elsewhere, or I don't know how you could have pulled that off, but it was a weird thing because Jack bumps into the tattooist and the tattooist misses, and Yaz goes, "Oh, damn, that hurt." And then they just go back and forth about like how different these two guys are. Like Jack is this straight lace. We don't see any. I don't think Jean-Claude Van Damme has any tattoos or piercings. We've never seen him, so maybe he does, but Dennis Rodman definitely does. And we see two, and they take shots back and forth at each other, and this scene leads into where Yaz gets Jack and takes him into his armory to show him all of his weapons that he has, because I guess he's an arms dealer. He's not really a CIA agent. I think Yaz is just an arms dealer. And this is where we get the beginning of the onslaught of basketball references from a character in this movie who it's never referenced that he played basketball. I mean, obviously, Dennis Rodman played basketball, but I feel like they shoehorned that in so many times. I think I counted 6 different references to basketball from Yaz. So, I mean, it was a little bit much. I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit much. I could see it probably pissed you off.
It didn't necessarily piss me off because I think I understand from the appeal perspective. Was this Dennis's first movie or like first like 1 or 2 movies?
I think it was in his early career, yeah.
So I would still have to imagine that you would need. I think that the Venn diagram of super macho-y, action-y flicks and basketball fans are 2 separate circles to some extent. So for Dennis Rodman to be inserted into this movie, people could be a fan of the Detroit Pistons or the Chicago Bulls or whoever and go, "Oh, I like Dennis Rodman. Maybe I'll check out this movie." and they kind of need something to latch onto in the middle of this mediocre. I'll spoil some of my review now. Mediocre film with some of the hey, I know this thing from the thing that I like. And if you don't have that, then maybe they just go, yeah, I'm not going to watch any more Dennis movies. So I think on some level you kind of have to have that. But I will agree with you that I think that some of it was shoehorned for sure.
After we get again our first of 6 basketball references in this movie, we get our first big showdown with Stavros, and it takes place in an amusement park. And Stavros has got people on the inside. Jean-Claude Van Damme has been embedded with a Delta Force strike team. And so far, I mean, in your review, I know you said that Dennis was the best actor in this whole movie on Letterboxd, and yeah, I agree because the rest of these characters could not talk. I think we had the dead eye from the Delta Force, and she was like, Jean Claude was talking to her, and he was like, "Well, who's my dead eye?" And she's like, "I could shoot a dick off a hummingbird," and it's just like, wow, like you're not sounding tough at all. But
Dennis being one of, if not the best actor in this movie is really disappointing because I expected a lot out of Paul Freeman. I think that in general he's a good actor. Maybe he was just pissed off that he had to do this movie and he was just phoning it in because he's been on our show before as Io News in the Power Rangers movie, and I think he killed it in that
killed
role.
it. Yeah.
And you can tell that he was having fun in that movie. I just don't think he was having fun in this one. Phoned it in.
They're at this amusement park, and there's a tiger in a cage. And I'm pretty sure that same tiger comes back later in this movie because I can't imagine they had multiple tigers on set. But they were freaking the fuck out of that tiger in the gunfight scene. Like, you could visibly see that it was very much agitated. But shit goes sideways. Stavros ended up going to the amusement park to meet his son. I don't know if that was, I'm assuming that was the wife. They never really said, but they definitely hammered home that was Stavros' son. Shit goes sideways. Bullets start flying. The Delta Force starts getting killed. They start killing Stavros' henchmen. We get our first product placement of the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme running and slipping on just a counter full of Coke cans. But he then converts that into a perfect roundhouse kick that takes down an assailant. So I guess Coke can do that. Pepsi can't. I don't know if it was Jack that took the shot. Somebody took a shot at Stavros and ended up killing his son. And Stavros had to leave him there. And you could really tell that kind of had an effect on Stavros. I mean, as it obviously would throughout the rest of the movie. But Stavros takes off. He's got to leave his dead son and the lady that brought him. I'm assuming maybe the wife or at least the mother of the kid. They fall in there in the amusement park. But Jack is chasing him. They end up in a hospital. And this has got to be the only movie where we see a fight between these two, like, top of the line assassins, secret agents, whatever you want to call them, gun battle in the middle of a nursery with babies and are actively using them as props and shields. At the end of the day, Jack gets blown up by a grenade that Stavros throws, and we see him kind of fade. But he definitely made sure he saved that baby that was in the little. And I mean, also too, like, they not only had like perfectly healthy babies in this nursery, there was a NICU scene because there was a preemie baby in one of the scenes where Jean-Claude Van Damme gets thrown through a window. So it's just like, hey, listen, we're going to cover all of our bases with baby. If there's a baby fan here, this is for you.
I think we can agree that this scene could have happened literally anywhere else in the hospital. It could have happened in the maternity ward. This could have happened in the psych ward. It could have happened in the ER, the OR, literally anywhere else. And it's like, you know what would be really cool? If we fire off a bunch of guns with brand new babies and permanently damage their hearing forever. That'd be so sick of a movie. There's something else that happens exactly like this that I will wait to get to, but it seems like whoever was directing this movie said, you know what would be sick? A lot, followed by whatever dumb thing that they were thinking of.
I think the whole thing with the babies was just pushing the envelope, just making it over the top. Like, yeah, you could have done it at any other place in the hospital, but babies are this sacred thing. They're precious. People coddle babies. And so it's kind of funny that the juxtaposition of these two guys just blasting shells throughout the nursery. And yeah, it's just, I think it was just for like the shock and the thrill, because you could have done this in a morgue, and maybe you could have had them use dead bodies or cadavers as human shields, and that might have got some laughs. But I'm sure when this came out, the fact that this took place in a nursery probably got people talking about it more than if it would have just been like a general OR.
I actually think that doing it in a morgue would be a lot funnier than babies. You're pulling out I don't know what any of these terms are called, but you're pulling out the piece of huge metal that they're laying on. You're opening the door to block a shield. You're throwing up their arm to, like, I think that would be objectively pretty funny. I think that they should have done that instead, now that you're bringing it up.
You can reach out to the director and just be like, hey, listen, I've got some ideas. We can remake this. We can make this better.
Hey, do you remember your 1997 film, Double Team? I've got some pointers for you, actually.
Now that you're pitching this movie again, who would you have play Jean-Claude Van Damme, and who would you have play Yaz? And it's got to be the same concept of a basketball player.
Like if I was doing it today? Or
yeah, doing it today.
97?
No, not 1997. So I know you picked Karl Malone in 97.
Yeah. So the basketball player is, without a doubt, Anthony Edwards. I think that Anthony Edwards is so funny. I think that he's so charismatic. And I love what he did in Hustle with Adam Sandler. So I think that he would be great for Yaz's role. And I think that Jean-Claude Van Damme's role is actually more difficult for me, because I'm pretty tapped out on like big macho-y, like Jean-Claude Van Damme type of guys. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go with somebody from like the wrestling world, because that's the only way that I can go. Roman Reigns, maybe, just a big hunky guy that could do a halfway decent promo.
So you don't think The Rock and John Morant would make a good double team?
No, I think that The Rock. I've said this before about The Rock, not on here, but just in general. I think that The Rock is too big. I think that he's too jacked to be doing this kind of thing. And it all started with Fast Five, where he was like really on the juice. It was just really noticeable that he's like John Cena too, to some extent, especially in Peacemaker Season 2. He's too jacked of a human to be doing these things. I think he needs to drop it a little bit for me to be like, yeah, this is what a super villain, a superhero looks like, instead of, oh god, dude, you are fucking on it, aren't you?
And then, so, now getting back to the movie, Jack awakens from surviving the explosion, and he awakens on this island prison that's called the Colony. And it's this high-tech prison that has mercenaries or secret agents or spies or, just anybody has a certain set of skills and has gone, quote-unquote, too soft. They end up on the Colony. So it's all these guys, and some of them have been... Actually, the only one that we know have been adversaries is Jean-Claude Van Damme and the Russian guy, Dieter Sal, who's taken a dive in the pool. Those are the only ones that we know for sure have been adversaries. But they're all on this island together, and they all work for like this NSA-esque, like all-observing, all-knowing spy agency. And what they do on this island is they are given a choice when they arrive. They have to either agree to work with them, or they can get nerve gassed and die. And the computer, or I think it was the TV that was actually talking to Jack in his room, and he said, you can press your thumb here and confirm you're going to work with us, or we can spray this nerve gas and you'll die. Doesn't really matter because you're already dead. Everybody already thinks you're dead. So either way, it's up to you. Make your choice. Jack ultimately he runs that buzzer down to, I think, 2 or 1, and just begrudgingly agrees to work with this company. And then as soon as he opens the door, that's when we meet Mr. Ooze himself. This time he's going by Goldsmith, and he is going to be Jack's kind of like like a trainer, I guess would be a good term for it, of getting him, acclimated to the colony and the rules and what they have to do, and what their goal is on this island. So Goldsmith and Jack, they're going through the whole rigmarole of all of the, the intricacies of the island. You got to wear this watch that is like a precursor to an Apple Watch, and you've got to use these biometric scanners, and you've got to do. They talk about how you can't leave the island because there's it's set up kind of like Alcatraz in the fact that it's all out there by itself, but then I also have lasers underneath the water, and so Goldsmith tells them only one person has tried to escape from here that we know of, and he drowned. So it's not worth it. You can't get off here. Like, you might as well just enjoy your life. It kind of makes me think of an island of all like the dads who went away for cigarettes or milk and never came back. They just end up on the colony. And in a way, that's how this movie kind of sets Jack up for, because he was going to be a father. So maybe that's where all the absentee fathers go. They just go to this magical island and work for the governments of the world. They get, they get summons to this what looks like an observatory, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is supposed to look like. But it's this amphitheater inside the observatory that has all these computers, and it's got a hand scanner. So Goldsmith tells Jack, sit down, put the headphone in, and everybody is allowed to stay here as long as they contribute to what's going on. So they immediately tap into another one of the, again, kind of like the Iraqis getting plutonium. They had to shoehorn in the North Koreans were behind this plane that gets shot down over that flew out of San Francisco to Seoul. Jack immediately is like, I don't think this was just an explosion. The Secretary of Defense is lying. Look at it again, and there's like this little espionage hook where it's they say, oh my god, yeah, there's a plane that flew behind, like I forget which one they called it, but it was like a stealth bomber basically flew behind the airplane, and North Korea shot it down because they were trying to hit the stealth plane. But they never go back to that either. Like, that's just a throwaway line. It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, North Korea was definitely, shot down this airplane. The government, the U.S. government pins it on North Korea, but again, they just kind of drop it from that point. And then we go back and we see Jack's widow, Catherine. She gets a call from Rome, although it's never really said where she gets it from. I pieced that together from watching the movie all the way through before I figured out where she immigrated to. But she gets a call from Rome and she immigrates. They grant her application for immigration, so her sculptures can be featured in a gallery, because she's this sculptor. But she's not, and maybe it's just not for me, but like, I know it's very abstract, her sculptures were, but earlier in the film we see one that she did, and it was just looked like junk. But maybe that's just because I'm uncultured. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, Mr. 5 stars for slacks. Are you uncultured, or do you just not get it?
Like you said, different strokes, different folks. You will kink shame me for liking great movies that everybody else is too afraid to like.
Too afraid to like, or that have better things to do in their time.
You say tomato, I say tomato. Who knows? But she immigrates to Rome, and then we get cut back to Jack, and he's just training super hard. He's doing these wall splits in these super short gray shorts.
At one point, he's literally just humping the tub.
Yeah.
That's his entire workout.
I mean, the tub did have a lot of water in it, so it was heavy at least.
Yeah, I guess. I will say that at least the workouts were practical. These could have been silly, bullshit, Rocky montage kind of shit that you would never use ever, but at the very least they were practical, and I will give the movie that.
We see him doing the wall splits. We see him doing the thing where he times his breath underneath in the bathtub with the cigarette, and I mean, you're right. We definitely see he has to use those skills later in this movie. So I'm glad you were able to give it its flowers when it's possible.
Well, we'll see how many flowers I give it when we get to the score, but
but then after that first training montage, we get an alert. They've got all the analysts have to go to the observatory there's been a new attack, and this time it's in Barcelona. Nobody's claiming responsibility. I don't know how none of the other analysts picked up on it, but there's this scene where Jack is at the computer and he's looking and he like amplifies an image on a graffiti on this building, and it just says Q, I have your butterfly. And so Jack's wife, Catherine, has a butterfly tattoo, so he obviously knew, hey, this was Stavros for me. And the analysts were like, well, nobody can afford Stavros. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is Stavros? He was like, I know it's Stavros. Like, I have to figure out a way to get out of here. And then he starts training even harder, and that's when he starts humping the tub. And he builds that Bowflex and, whatever. Then after the lovemaking scene with the bathtub, Jack decides he's going to make his attempt at at escaping the colony. We see him figure out pretty early that the way this island works is they have to obviously get supplies sent in. We see the plane fly in every week and drop off, and then they pick up a bundle of stuff. I don't know what they would be picking up from the island unless they're shipping out laundry to be washed. And well, when they're doing the drop off, they shut off the lasers that are in the water, in the ocean. Jack times it just right, jumps off a cliff, ends up in the water, and he's trying to make his escape. Well, then all of a sudden a bag gets put over his head by a unknown scuba diver, and it never says who it is in the video itself is pretty dark because it's underwater, obviously. But I was able to deduce that was his adversary, Dieter Stahl. I originally thought it was Goldsmith, but this guy gets blown up that attacked Jack, and because the lasers come back on eventually. But Jack has already made his escape. He's on the cargo pallets, shimmying his way up in the sky. I would not want to be that stunt man that performed that stunt of being on the cargo while it's just flying out the back of a C-130. Like, there's no amount of money you could have paid me for that, because anything possibly could go wrong.
Yeah, I wish I could say that was the same thing, but little lore drop for anybody listening here. I was born with one functional kidney, which automatically disqualified me from being in any sort of military service. And that was my whole gig. I wanted to be a Blue Angel pilot. That's what I wanted. So I would love to be able to sit here and pretend like I wouldn't have done that. But given the opportunity, I 100% would have.
Jack works his way up there. He's on the back of the plane. He runs into the loadmasters on the back of the plane. They get in a little fight. Jack asks one of them, he's like, you're wearing a parachute, right? And the guy goes, yeah. And so Jack just tosses him off the back of the plane, and then he throws the other one. Then we see
but
Jack.
Didn't ask the other one.
No, he was just like, I'm assuming you have a parachute too. So he could have done his first murder that we see in this movie. So after he's thrown, these two loadmasters off and commandeered the plane, they land. It never really shows where they land, but I believe they landed in Antwerp because that's when Yaz comes back into the movie at the 47-minute mark. Because I was like, he's featured on the cover, but we haven't seen him hardly at all in this movie. But we finally get the return of Yaz, and he is in Antwerp on his yellow crotch rocket. Jack and Yaz link up again, and they go back into Yaz's toy shop, and Yaz is showing him all these different weapons, and Jack is trying to shop, and Yaz says, well, you got any cash? Jack says no, and he's like, well, dead men don't have credit, but I like trouble. So he agrees to help Jack out by giving him all these weapons. And then, for whatever reason, we get a cutscene and we see Jack and Yaz in an airplane. And the airplane is painted to look like a flamingo, which is weird, but okay, whatever. And Jack says, well, do you have any parachutes? And Yaz says, no, I got something better. Jack is like, all right. So he throws Yaz off the plane and then jumps. And eventually he pulls out this. It turns out to be like a parachute, but it's like a giant inflatable basketball. And they both are in it, and they just fall to the ground. And we get another basketball reference from Yaz, which would go on to be the third at this time, because he goes, yeah, that's what we call hang time. After they survive the basketball drop out of the Flamingo airplane, we see that Jack has parachuted back to his home back in the south of France with Catherine. I don't know what he thought he was going to discover when he got there. And he wasn't gone that long because he had a calendar and he was, marking it down the days or whatever. But he parachuted back into his home, and he sees a woman who's not his wife, that doesn't look like his wife, that is putting a baby that he assumes is his son to sleep in a crib when his son hasn't even been born yet. So unless he was expecting there to be a premature situation, I don't know why he thought that was going to be his wife and his baby in there. But it's just an ambush. So Stavros must have got the drop that Jack had escaped and he was on the hunt for him. So they set up this ambush, and it's just explosion and gunfight and karate out the ass. We see Jack actually pull off some really cool kills while lounging on a pool float. Yaz comes back into the picture after the house blows up and Jack has killed so many people. Yaz comes back to the picture as Jack has kind of fallen into a trap by Stavros. He's got this car that is just playing a message on repeat, and it's just his son's heartbeat. And Stavros is telling him, "Hey, if I were you, I'd get to this hotel in Rome. Your son is going to be fine. Your wife is going to be fine. He's got a strong heart, but don't take this car. It's a little bumpy." Jack walks around the building or around the car and almost gets shot by a would-be assassin laying in wait, but instead, Yaz comes into the picture and saves his ass again. They've got to get a car. They've got to get from the south of France. They got to get to Rome. There's obviously no other cars around. Yaz, where's a shiesty in this movie? A big orange shiesty walks into this town and steals the tiniest car possible, to the point he has to remove the fabric sunroof and just drive with his head pop through the sunroof. And I was just like, God, you didn't laugh at this?
I could appreciate how absurd it was. Seeing a shiesty in 1990, whatever, really funny, because I thought the shiesties were more modern than that. But also, it's not like Dennis Rodman was a guard. It's not like he was Isaiah Thomas and he could have blended in with the crowd. He's 6'7". Like,
he's 6'7", he's tattooed, and another thing I loved about this movie is every time we see him on screen, he's got a different hair dye. They make it to Rome. We learn that the guardian of Jack is Goldsmith, and the guardians from the colony, they're responsible. It's kind of like your mentor for like AA or whatever, but they're responsible for, your ward. So they're sent out to capture and bring them back to the island or kill them. So we now know Goldsmith is that for Jack. Goldsmith's been tracking him the whole time, so he just keeps popping up everywhere they go. Jack tells Yaz go back to Antwerp and he'll get paid, but Stavros has a son, so he's obviously got to, take care of these things first. Yaz shows some heart, and he says, you know what, forget about the money. The best defense is a good offense, which basketball reference number 4. So Jack sends this email out knowing that all these intelligence agencies are obviously going to be observing and see this email come from Stavros's account. He sends an invite that says all ghosts are invited to a Halloween party that's going to be thrown by Stavros at noon. It works like a charm because all these agencies pick it up. Stavros sees it. Stavros kind of tips his hat to him and is like, hey, that was a pretty smart call on your behalf. Then we see the courtyard, and we see all these intelligence agents just from every agency you could ever think of, everyone you've heard of, everyone you probably never heard of. They've all convened in this courtyard. Again, shit goes sideways, and it goes sideways quick. All these agents start just shooting at each other, shooting at civilians. It's just a crazy battle, and lots of over-the-top explosions, over-the-top fights. So after the bullets start flying and all these agencies are just fucking it up and stepping over each other, we see Jack and Yaz in the city center as well. Jack sees his wife Catherine because at this point Stavros knew that Jack was coming and he was going to be in the city. So Stavros whisked Catherine away to take her to another location. Before he left the hotel room that Catherine was staying in with him, he put a prescription up on the mirror as a calling card for Jack. If he finds it, he'll know where to go next. Catherine makes her escape. Jack, there's a sniper at one point from Stavros who is going to shoot Jack. Yaz saves his ass again. Um, Yaz starts chasing the sniper. Somehow Jack gets to him first though, which was weird to me how they were so far, like they didn't even in the movie they didn't appear to be like they were that close in terms of proximity to each other, and it seemed like Jack was further away from the assassin. Somehow they ended up in the same hotel. There's this big fight. The sniper ends up having a suitcase gun. Jack yells, "Hey, that's my wife!" And the guy turns around, starts blasting him. Jack kicks him through the door. There's this big fight. And then we meet another hitman who's just waiting in there as well, who's got toe knives, or a toe knife, which never seen that before. But him and Jack battle. Jack gets the best of him. Mr. Toe Knife ends up killing the other assassin. Jack just subdues Mr. Toe Knife. And yeah, again, there's just that assassin is also in Simon Says. After Jack has survived the foot stabbing attempt, he makes his way over to the mirror, sees the prescription slip for Pitocin, which is used to induce contractions, which is then taped on the mirror that we said earlier was placed there by Stavros. Catherine is at a hospital somewhere in the city, accompanied by Stavros and his henchmen, and she's going to go into labor relatively soon if she's already on Pitocin. Jack hooks up with Yaz. They make their way to a monastery looking for help. While working on their supercomputer, the monks, they do a little throwaway too about one of the monks is definitely a pervert and having cyber sex, because there's these pop-ups that keep popping up, and the one monk that's manning the computer is definitely pissed off about it. And the older monk is just like, "Oh, it's the internet. I don't know how that happened." And I've definitely used that excuse for when my parents have caught me looking at stuff I shouldn't on the internet. I don't know who the hell did this. The monks, they, after their little embarrassing incident, we see them pounding away on the keyboard trying to find any help from that prescription slip that Jack found. Turns out there were one of 27 doctors who could have wrote that prescription. And while in the underground tunnels, we get our sixth basketball quote. As Yaz, they've built this. They're trying to bypass Stavros's men, who are positioned on the bridge leading into the hospital. So to do that, they're in these catacombs, and there is a barricade that's separating them. Yaz does this thing where he's like, "Oh, maybe I've got something in my pocket that'll take care of it." And he's got a gun, or not a gun. He's got a coin, his lucky coin, and he's like, "I also have my lucky plastic explosive and my lucky detonator. I'm always prepared." So he makes this. There's another basketball reference here. He doesn't have enough wire to safely detonate this explosion. So he goes and he sees skulls. Well, he throws the first one and he goes, "Oops, airball." And then he hits it the second time. They make their way up from the catacombs. They make their way. There's this big fight to get in the hospital. They eventually get up there. Jack's reunited with Catherine. He almost, again, is on the verge of getting shot. But Catherine's, like, "Hey, there's a lady in the floor with a gun, so just be careful." Well, Jack pulls the gun on the lady. Turns out it was the doctor that helped deliver Catherine and Jack's son. And Catherine tells him, "Hey, she saved my life. Without her, I wouldn't be here." So Jack spares her. And then he kicks the operating table and says, "My son!" Which was over the top. I read online that a lot of people think this was when Jean-Claude Van Damme was definitely going through some substance abuse issues. And they were like, you can definitely tell in this movie. Looking at it through that lens, I could see he's kind of got those dead eyes. Jack, after he's, had his little temper tantrum, the doctor's like, "Hey, I know where they took your son." Stavros took this new baby to a coliseum that has henchmen with guns, has the coliseum floor is mined with landmines, and then there's same tagger, I believe, from the very beginning of this movie is now at the coliseum working for Stavros. And so we get this big showdown between Stavros and Jack. Stavros tells him, hey, look, there's no worse pain than losing your son, losing a child. I I close my eyes super hard every night and I can't not see his face. And I know what that's like. He said, but if you survive tonight, you can have your son back. If you die, I'll raise him as my own because the son needs a man. So it's this weird
We
macho
love
bullshit.
a villain with morals.
He definitely, so in this scene, Mickey Rourke again is just looking like an absolute sex god. He's got those low-rise leather pants. He's looking chiseled. You know, maybe he wouldn't be the worst stepdad in the world. He at least came out of hiding to see his biological son, so you know he values family. They've had this big monologue, and all littered across the floor of the Coliseum, we see these crosses. Well, when they're having their big dialogue, Stavros tells Jack, "Be careful. There's landmines here." And so then we put two and two together and realize that it is the crosses are where the landmines are. And out of nowhere, Yaz comes in on a dirt bike, scoops up the kid, takes off with the baby in a bassinet or a basket, riding through the Coliseum past all these landmines with a tiger chasing them. And Dennis Rodman just ditches him in this hole in the middle of the Coliseum. And he's like, all right, don't start the party without me. And goes back to help Jack. Thankfully, Yaz did go back to help Jack because Jack again almost gets killed. The tiger has chased him now up to the very top of the Coliseums. Below Jack, there is a guy with a gun shooting at him. So Jack makes the bridge that the tiger's on fall. Tiger goes down. Jack's able to get the gunman. And then the fight is back on to get back to the call. I don't know why Jack ran back to the Coliseum. Because he obviously knew Yaz wasn't in the Coliseum, at least not on the Coliseum floor with his kid anymore. So I don't know why the purpose was for him to run back there. But Stavros trips him and then is beating his ass pretty soundly before Yaz comes back. Yaz steps on a mine and figures out how to disarm it enough to get his foot off. Then Stavros tells Jack, oh, looks like you have big feet. You got to watch where you stand because now Jack is on the landmine. And then we see Stavros also on a landmine at this point. So this is again where we see Yaz and he says, hey, mines are expensive. And I know you went through a lot of trouble of digging these and marking them. And you see Yaz holding up two crosses. And he's like, I took the liberty of moving some. Jack moves. He was never on a landmine, but Stavros is. And then the tiger comes back and immediately starts walking towards Stavros as Jack and Yaz make their getaway to go find the baby. Right when they get back to where the baby is, we see the baby's gone, but Goldsmith reappears and he now is holding the baby. So Jack, Yaz, and Goldsmith are in the bowels of this catacomb, making their escape, and we get a cut back quickly to Stavros, who steps off the landmine, blowing him and the tiger and the Coliseum to hell. And we just see the three heroes running through the basement of this Coliseum, and there's just conveniently a wall of Coke vending machines, and as the Coliseum's exploding, we see our three heroes and the baby stand behind one Coke machine that is able to somehow withstand the blast of this huge explosion. And we see our heroes are unscathed from the explosion. Goldsmith and Jack are walking out, and Yaz are walking to the car so they can get out of there. Goldsmith because again, Goldsmith is the guardian for Jack. So he's got this duty. He's got to bring back, Jack dead or alive. Well, now it's pretty convenient. There's been this big explosion, so obviously there wouldn't be a body. All he would need is some type of proof that he killed Jack so he could have his life back. So he tosses Jack a knife, tells him, cut your hair and cut a piece of your shirt and that'll be enough. You'll be good to go. For whatever reason, Yaz decides to throw the lucky coin to Goldsmith, and it's just like a smoke bomb. And Jack and the baby make a getaway, and Dennis Rodman or Yaz's character goes, "You're not cutting my hair, but you can have this shirt," and just throws in Jack's shirt. And then the movie just cuts to black, and we don't know, where Jack and his son end up, what the finality of it all is. It just fades to black, credits roll, and we hear Dennis Rodman and Crystal Waters performing "Just a Freak," and that's a perfect ending to me.
This whole Coliseum scene is exactly what I was talking about earlier when I said the producing team was just going, it would be fucking sick as hell. X thing. A fucking tiger that I do martial arts against and Dennis Rodman riding a dirt bike. That'd be fucking so sick.
It was cool.
You shouldn't be able to give broy bros that much money and a production studio and cameras because they're going to do shit like this. There's a theme with some of your movies. I don't know if you've noticed or not. If you just turn your brain off, they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But that, to me, is the same thing as going to this restaurant and going, bro, you have to try this. This shit fucking sucks. Or listening to an album like, bro, this is the worst shit I've ever heard. You have to listen to it. Like, it's the same thing. And, maybe it's my fault. Maybe this hasn't ever occurred to you, but it's definitely occurred to me before. Have you considered picking good movies for us to watch for once? Or does that just, not
I told you,
I
like to do things that make your blood pressure rise a little bit. You know that from us being friends, from us being co-workers, from us being co-hosts. You already know that I love this movie. So I'm just going to tell you what I loved about it. And then I'm dying to hear if you have anything nice to say. But for me, I love the fight scenes and the absurdity of it all. Whether that was the fighting in the nursery or the fact that they were able to survive a pretty big explosion by hiding behind coke vending machines. I love the absurdity of it all.
It's not like this movie. It's not Shapeshifter. This movie has redeeming qualities in it. There just aren't a lot. I think that Dennis is really funny. I think that you would be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't think that Dennis Rodman is funny. I also think that despite his ability as an actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme is a very good martial artist. And especially at that point, cut from stone, he has the look for it. I understand why he was cast in so many films like this. But it's the rest of this movie where it starts to fall apart for me. But by a mile, my favorite thing was Dennis Rodman. So funny, so effortless, wasn't trying too hard, nailed it. My least favorite thing in this whole bit is Jean-Claude Van Damme. And again, it's not even a compliment sandwich because I said I'm not going to have a good, bad, good thing to go off here. He's a very good martial artist. He's cut from stone. He has the look. I get why he's doing it. I have now seen, to my memory, 3 live-action Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Because he's in the Kung Fu Panda movies, which is just a voice role, and these don't count. Those are obviously different than the ones that I've seen so far. He plays the same guy. He plays the same role. It's the same movie. This and Bloodsport is the same movie, except one's dealing with the CIA and one's dealing with a martial arts tournament. It's the same movie. He's playing the same character. And I just don't... I don't know why I'm trying to tiptoe around this. I don't give a fuck what these people think. It's the same thing with Chuck Norris. If he didn't have the look that people were aspiring for in the 70s, he wouldn't be anywhere. Because he's not a good actor. He just had the look. So with Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's the same thing. Because you look like that, because you're cut out of stone, we'll keep throwing you these bro-y macho movies. Who gives a shit how you act? It's gonna make money, and this one did. It made $18 million more than the budget, which, isn't a great return, but it's still a profit. Jean-Claude Van Damme isn't a good actor. So putting him in movies that you're making me watch is going to lead to me having a bad time.
I'm going to eventually find a Jean-Claude Van Damme film that you like. Have you seen Time Cop?
I've not seen Time Cop, but you know what? If you want to suggest Kung Fu Panda 2, I'm sure I would like that. I like the first one.
So what I hated about this movie, there's not much that I hated about this movie, but there's one thing that absolutely I fucking every time they did it, I just was like, God, this fucking sucks. Um, I don't know how many people. I'm sure a lot of people have played Fallout 3. I hated the VATS system style shots in this movie. I feel like it definitely took away from the scene. It made me just like I said. Anytime it came on the scene on the screen, I was just like, "Fuck! I hate this shot." So for me, the that is my biggest complaint about this movie is the bat style shots. And I know it was of the time, they're trying to do all these different, you know, slow motion or whatever, zoomed in, super crazy shots, but it just did not work for me. What would you change?
Most, if not all of it. I think that the best change would be to shift tonally a little bit, or at the very least, don't drop me off in the middle of an action movie and then play the rest of it. Give me some more backstory, give me time to develop a character to be like have sympathy for this. And you could say, well, he's got a pregnant wife, he's getting ready to have a child, and he's taken away from his family. That's your sympathy. That's why you should connect with a character. I don't know this man. He just showed up. Like, yeah, that's super unfortunate, but I don't have the emotional heartstrings to attach to him yet. And this is the most popular kind of example that I can give. If Iron Man, if Tony Stark died at the end of Iron Man 1, I wouldn't give a shit. Because it was an hour and a half, I don't have enough time to effectively connect with him. Because he died at Endgame, spoiler alert for a fucking almost decade-old movie at this point. Because he died in Endgame, I had the proper time, 10 movies probably at that point, I had the proper time to connect with the character, and I felt something when he died. So, you showing up on screen, and if I'm being generous, 10 minutes passes by, and now you're ripped away from your family, I go, damn, dude, that sucks, but that's it. That's as far emotionally as I get. So give me the opportunity to connect with the character. And also, maybe just not have Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. Maybe if you had an actor who could act, maybe if I changed my tune about this movie entirely.
Chuck Norris.
Yeah, Chuck Norris, get him in here.
But for me, I wouldn't change a damn thing. It was perfect. Chef's kiss.
It's like they used their entire budget on explosions and then went, shit, we have to hire actors. And then
we have to make a movie. Yeah, I definitely could see that. But, you brought up a good point with Dennis Rodman. Maybe the fact that they were shooting probably around his basketball schedule. Maybe they were like, okay, we'll shoot what we can when we can. And it's going to be out of order. And maybe it'll make sense this way. Maybe it won't. Who knows? Would you watch this again?
Not on my life. Gun to my head, watch this or die, pull it.
I'm ready to go. So for me, I would watch it again. Full disclosure, I had to rent this movie. So I wouldn't pay for it to watch it again. They got $4 from me this time. They won't get it the next. But it was, I enjoyed it. What was your rating on this movie?
I gave it a 1. And I said this, we've only had 1 half-star review from me in our little series here so far. I said in that movie, which was Shapeshifter, by the way, in case anybody is tuning in now, I said that the only way that I give something half a star is if there are 0 redeeming qualities about the film. I gave this a 1 because it does have redeeming qualities in it. Dennis Rodman is very funny. There were a couple of times that didn't involve Dennis Rodman that I did laugh. I thought that the action scenes, and especially the mixed martial arts, or the martial arts scene rather, were very good. But they weren't so good to make up for the rest of the inaccuracies of this movie. So it's just going to have to be a really low rating for me, but not the worst. Shapeshifter will still have the dishonor of being the worst movie we've watched so far, and probably the worst movie we'll ever watch in this series, hopefully, if there's a God.
Hit the nail right on the head. Yet. It's the worst movie we've seen yet. I give it a 4.5. I went back and forth between a 4 and a 5 because of the acting chops of the rest of the supporting cast in this movie. I couldn't give it a full 5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, It's just the supporting actors, which is what's holding you out for sure. I don't like how waiter number 4 delivered his line there. It wasn't really doing anything for me. What are we talking about?
Listen, I like shitty fighting movies with terrible plot, and you like fast car movies.
You gave Way of the Dragon 2.5.
Arguably worse.
It had better action scenes than this movie did, and the same level of acting. The only thing that this movie didn't have was bad voiceover.
And this one had Dennis Rodman. I told you in the very beginning, I'm a sucker for the Rodman. I think that raised the ship on this movie. I think had it been Horace Grant, Karl Malone, some other basketball player, I don't think I would have given it a 4.5 if everything else would have been the same.
Okay, so realistically, right, say Sean Bradley, someone around that time, big 7'3" guy that played for the Mavericks at one point. If he was in this movie instead of Dennis Rodman, what's the score?
2.
There's no way that Dennis Rodman is worth a full 2.5 points.
To people who don't love him, me and the leader of North Korea know and value and respect this man. But growing up in the 90s, he was my favorite Bull. I was a husky white kid. I dyed my hair to match Dennis Rodman when I played basketball. I fucking sucked at offense. I played power forward. I'm not tall. You know that. I haven't grown much since I was a kid, but I was gritty. I was hell in the paint. I was going to get the rebounds. That's the way I lived my life. We're both, I don't know if Dennis Rodman's communist. I am communist. He's friends with the president of North Korea. So, Dennis, come get your boy.
We now have to go to what my movie will be for next week, which I'm excited about. If you watched our first episode and have been with us this entire way, again, thank you. We very much appreciate it. This is a movie in my 6 grandfathers list. Finally knocking one of those off. In the same vein of Double Team and Fast and the Furious and those kind of things. Very bro-y. Very, very macho. We're going to watch 2008's critically acclaimed film, Never Back Down, mixed martial arts movie featuring Amber Heard, which I didn't know until like 4 years ago. That was news to me then. So super excited to watch that. Join us next week when we review that. Follow us on all socials at Sadboy Cinema, TikTok and Twitter, here on YouTube, obviously, and our new Facebook page. Again, Sadboy Cinema. Also, follow our individual letterbox accounts and record our handles above our head here. Unless you have something, I'll send us out of here.
Until next time, remember, teeth are just bones that want to look outside.
That's going to do for me. That's going to do for AJ. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. See you in the next one. You're going to have a hard time trying to do that. Might be time to look into a new place.